Hello there, sound test 1 2 3 4. Hello there, sound test 1 2 3 4. Yeah, good enough. So I want to do something really special. There's this little movie that came out recently. I don't know if anyone's heard of it. A little indie, low budget B movie that probably isn't on anyone's radar called Avengers Endgame. Yeah, that one. I want to talk about it. And I've been wanting to do a movie review of some sort for some time now, but I haven't really decided on what format I'm gonna do. What can I offer out for the internet that hasn't already been there? Like movie review is so prevalent, and Avengers Endgame is something that everybody wants to talk about apparently. So what really can I offer? And this is what I decided. I'm just gonna casually go into an NBA 2K19 game. Well, how about just Rockies versus Golden State, which is going to happen very soon in real life. So let's get
Who's the
into it.
best NBA 2K player?
Gonna bypass this. You shouldn't hear anything except my voice and the effects in the game. Like you won't hear any commentary or music or crowd noise. I think I've disabled all of those. It's just the sound of basketball, and occasionally players have some noise, or think you'll barely hear any of it, I guess. So you'll mainly hear me talking about movie while playing a basketball game. Why do I do that? Well, just don't bother, okay? One thing I have to say is what I'm about to say about Avengers Endgame is going to wait a second. What's going on? Oh, I chose the James All Star team instead of Houston Rockets. Don't matter. I don't intend to win this. I'm gonna be terrible at this, but it's not because I usually play that badly. But I don't think I'm not that good, but I'm not that bad. I'm just not going to be focusing on the game. I would be barely noticing what's going on and just let my instinct take the game. Well, I would be focusing my energy on talking about the movie. So I'm going to be talking a lot spoilery, and I think most of you should have watched the movie by now, and if not, well, just keep it in your watch later list, and or save it for a project for for your grandchildren to watch someday. I don't know. So, Avengers Endgame obviously is the culmination of Marvel Cinematic Universe's 11-year world building. It is the 22nd movie in the franchise in 11 years, which is crazy to think about. It's amazing that this thing exists at all. And I have seen this movie twice. Uh, I seen it the first day it came out, and then I saw it again this weekend on IMAX 3D. I will be seeing it a third time on Wednesday, which is 2 days from now. I'm 3 days from now. I look forward to it. So for me to watch a movie in theater for 3 times, that's already the highest record for me, and obviously I don't do that very lightly. Uh, it's This is the fourth movie that I will be watching in theater for 3 times. The first three are Star Wars: The Force Awakens, Star Wars: The Last Jedi, and Infinity War. And yeah, I really unapologetically freaking love this movie. That's not to say I think it's perfect. I think there are plenty of things to frown upon. But overall, what this movie achieved really is something so special, so unique, so once in a lifetime that I really can bypass all of the faults, all of the inconsistencies, all of the potential plot holes, potential but maybe not. I will be talking about those in detail, but this is the end of the non-spoiler part, if you can call it that. The rest of it is just a recounting of the plot and how I think about them. So I'm not gonna be able to prove this to anyone, but I freaking called about the first 10 minutes of the movie. Uh, the movie started with Hawkeye's family, which I successfully predicted because when I saw that shot in the trailer about when Hawkeye is teaching his daughter to shoot arrows, shit, I'm actually killing them. I think I've set the difficulty too easy. No matter, it's not important. When I saw the shot with Hawkeye and his family, I kind of thought this has to be the first scene in the movie. This has to be the cold opening because his family has to be dusted. Especially his children, they are so gone. So the snap is going to happen in this scene. And the snap is the last scene of the last movie. So naturally, this would be the first scene of the new movie. And I was right. And it was a very well shot scene. I think Jeremy Renner and Paul Rudd, they weren't in the Infinity War. They are so made up in this movie. They have a lot more screen time than probably people would have imagined. And it's really incredible how much they make you care about Hawkeye in this movie. Hawkeye is a character that has grown up so well. Incredibly so. When he first started in the Avengers, I mean, he was first in Thor, but that barely counts. In the Avengers, he was mind controlled most of the time. When he finally joined the fight, we still pretty much don't know anything about him, and he could have died in the corner and nobody would know. Age of Ultron, where he has his before this fight is the development where he becomes kind of a mentor for Scarlet Witch. He had that rival with Quicksilver. He was revealed to have a family with kids, and it was heavily set up that he was going to sacrifice his life, but it didn't, which I didn't see coming. This movie started with him losing the most important thing in his life, and it was like seeing a time bomb go off and having no ability to control it. It's really a hard scene to watch, even though it's a charming scene. Everybody's smiling. It's such a nice day. Hey, do you want ketchup on your hot dog or something like that? No, nobody's gonna get ketchup on hot dog. Nobody's gonna be able to eat a lot of hot dog because most of you are going to die very soon, and they did. And the movie then went to space in the new ship of the Guardians of the Galaxy. It's not Milano anymore. I don't remember the new name, but only Nebula and Tony Stark, who were the sole survivors on Titan from the snap. And they were on that ship. The ship was damaged. It wasn't working very well, but they were trying to make it to Earth. And it started with a scene where Tony Stark and Nebula are playing paper football. I think that's what it was. And even in that very simple scene, there's a lot of development for Nebula. Nebula is another character that really that didn't make a good first impression, but really shone in this movie. Stark was teaching Nebula how to play this tiny, insignificant table game, and Nebula was like taking it really seriously because she was taught by Thanos to be competitive. She had always had a thing for winning, and she doesn't win all that much. Like, it's such a small, insignificant win. She cared about it, and she was proud of it. I guess I think in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, she revealed that Gamora doesn't always let her win in their little competition for their daddy's love. So yeah, any victory for Nebula is a huge one. But it quickly went to a more somber tone where Tony recorded his last words to Pepper with the last bit of armor, which is the scene we saw. That was the first footage of Avengers 4 that we saw in the first teaser. And so that was a pretty good one. And you can see Tony Stark is visibly just very thin. There's like no meat on him because he hasn't eaten for some time, and he was dehydrated as well. And after he recorded a message, he just laid down and went to sleep right on the floor. And I was like, dude, come on, you're on a spaceship. I know you have ran out of food and water, and you're about to run out of air, which is very miserable and all that. But you can find a bed. You don't have to sleep on the floor. And sure enough, Nebula comes along and gently puts him on the pilot seat. I think that was. I would have put him on a bed, but the pilot seat is better than the floor. It seems like Tony was was about to just die in his sleep when there is a light coming from outer space. Tony opened his eyes, and sure enough, he wasn't going to die today because Captain Marvel was here. Now, about how I've heard a lot of theories about how Tony is going to go home, and the name of Captain Marvel has appeared a lot because she can just freely roam in outer space. That's a perfect vehicle to get Tony home. But a lot of but there was this concern that whether they can really justify how Captain Marvel can find Tony in outer space, because it's space. And in case you don't know, space is kind of, well, big. It's not exactly conceivable that two people can just randomly meet in space. I've also heard people say that, Tony is on his way to Earth. Captain Marvel is on her way to Earth. So maybe they just chanced upon each other. No, I don't think that's what it is. However, I do think it can be explained away if they had added one little scene in it. I can kind of make the connection to make it explainable. So this is how I think happened. Remember that little after credit scene in Captain Marvel where the Avengers are analyzing the beeper left by Fury, and all of a sudden Captain Marvel just appeared right behind Black Widow, and she asked, "Where's Fury?" And then that scene ended. We were really sure that this scene is going to appear in Endgame, but it didn't. So some of I have heard some reviews have just deduced that scene was retconned. It didn't happen, and Captain Marvel sending Tony home. That is how she was introduced to the rest of the Avengers. I don't think that's the case. Oddly, I think that scene still happened. It's just behind the scene. I think they just decided, since you have already seen the scene in Captain Marvel, and since we have a shit ton of content in the main body of this movie, we're not gonna show that again. So you're just gonna have to, connect the dots yourself. And let's assume for a moment that the Captain Marvel scene really happened. That would mean the other heroes, after she introduced herself, we can just imagine. It's not hard to imagine what would happen between them. After they ascertained that she was on their side, they would just fill her in about what happened, like half the universe was dusted. I mean, she would know that. I don't care what planet she was on, she would know that. And one of the heroes that were in the headquarters that could have told her more was Rocket Raccoon, and Rocket would be wondering where his Guardian friends are, right? So after knowing that Captain Marvel can just travel through space, he would ask her to find the ship, and he probably would have some way to track his own ship, and he just doesn't have the means to get there. And now that Captain Marvel is here, he could teach her that, and so she could, just go rescue them. And of course, Rocket at that point would not know exactly who had survived. Another thing I think is possible is that Captain Marvel did not appear at that time by sheer coincidence. I think maybe the recording of Tony drew her there. I mean, that is maybe it sent out a signal and they received the signal which exposed where the ship exactly is, and Captain Marvel just followed the signal to the coordinate. And yeah, I don't think this one is actually very hard to complain. I mean, explain. So after they Captain Marvel got Tony and Nebula home, there was a tender moment. Rocket and Nebula silently sat down and held hands together. Which I think is a sign that Rocket already knew only Nebula survived. I mean, that's gotta be hard on him. Of all the Guardian friends, that was so important to him, that was his only family, the only one to survive is Nebula. I don't want to, and I mean no disrespect to Nebula, but from the perspective of Rocket, he would have rather it be anybody else. I mean, that's just the truth. The first thing, Tony and Captain America finally met each other, and this has been the first time they actually looked each other in the eye since Captain America Civil War. And Tony said he lost a kid, which referring to Peter Parker. But you know, I don't think it's actually he. Of course, it's not actually his fault that Peter was dusted. I mean, he was dusted. He wasn't killed in combat. If he was like punched to death by Thanos, then that would be his fault because he brought him there. But since he's dusted, it doesn't really matter. He would be in the unfortunate 50% no matter where he was, no matter what he was doing, whether he was fighting Thanos or not, right? So now that the party is here, they could have some serious conversation as to what to do with Thanos. It's been like over 20 days, and they don't know where Thanos is, and they want to find him and continue to fight him, but they don't know how. Tony gets into a little aftermath with a little bit of aftermath of Civil War with Captain America, and I think Captain America Civil War is still my favorite MCU film, and one of the reasons I liked it so much is it treats all their arguments with such respect. Both of them always have valid points. Both of their standpoints are really understandable given their past. And I think that is kind of continued here. It gives their civil quabble a little bit of conclusion, and they called back to their conversation at Age of Ultron, where Cap said, "If we're gonna lose, we'll be losing together." Well, they kind of lost together, but not really together, because they weren't really together in Infinity War, which is another aftermath of Civil War. I really think the MCU structure is done so well. Civil War is the perfect way to get the Avengers not ready for Infinity War, because they are fighting on different fronts, and neither front is whole, so they couldn't really win. And Tony was kind of succumbed to his malnutrition, and he had to rest for some time. The others kind of conveniently figured out where Thanos would be, because Nebula said, confirmed that Thanos always had a retirement plan, that he was going to go to a place called the Garden after he wiped out half the universe. and Rocket brought up this signal that they detected on the planet, which seems to mean that Thanos had used the stones again, which I'm kind of confused about. If, like, how long have you been sitting on this information? They said it's 2 days ago, so why are you acting like you don't know where Thanos is if you have seen the exact same energy pattern on another planet 2 days ago? Obviously, that's where Thanos is. But it doesn't matter. They called on Captain Marvel and they decided to go after Thanos again. Which, with her there, it's gotta be easier. Um. Oh, and during that conversation, you can see Thor just somberly in the corner, just eating stuff, just drinking. I didn't really think about it at the time, the first time I saw it, but thinking of it now, it seems to be a pretty clever way to foreshadow what's to come. I gotta speed this up. I'm taking this way too slow. They go to the garden. They find and they go after Thanos. Thanos is alone on the planet, and we see a Thanos that's probably different than most of us would imagine. He was wearing a he was kind of just, it really is a literary garden. He was picking fruits. He picked fruits in a bag, and he was wearing just a, like, I can't even describe it. What you would imagine a farmer wear on a chill back Sunday afternoon. I don't know. That's the best I can do. And Thanos collected a bag of fruits. He put them in the pot to boil. He added a pinch of salt on it. But before he could eat any of it, the Avengers arrived in a very coordinated tactical assault that gave him no chance to fight back. And they held him still, and Thor used the Stormbreaker to cut off his arm, the arm with the Infinity Gauntlet. But having got the gauntlet, they realized there are no stones on it. All the stones are gone. The gauntlet is fucked up. Thanos is fucked up. Half of Thanos' body is burned out, and Thanos said he destroyed the stones. He used the stones to destroy themselves. So that's what the second energy burst that detected. So there is no way for them to just get the stones, get the gauntlet, and then snap everybody back. That's not gonna happen. That was their plan. That was their one plan to save the world. They hanged all their hope on it, and it doesn't work. And it's impossible to fulfill. And so Thor just very unceremoniously cut off Thanos' head, and he even said, "I went for the head." Pretty funny, and pretty funny amongst a very unfunny situation, because this is a moment. This is a continuation of the end of Infinity War. In the end of Infinity War, they failed. Thanos achieved what he wanted to do, and the Avengers failed. And with this opening of Endgame, the Avengers' failure is complete. Not only have you failed to prevent the disaster, you have failed to find the one solution that could possibly reverse it. And then the movie cut to 5 years later, which I think is just bold as fuck. It presented, so basically jumped to 2023. So we're in the future. What kind of future is it? Are we gonna see flying cars? I mean, we should, right? With the Wakanda being revealed to the public, with all the technology that should be reverse engineered, with all the Infinity Stones, world's technology gotta be soaring. I mean, especially with half the population wiped out. less people taking up resources. Isn't that what Thanos was going for in the first place? Like that, the half that survived will be thriving, right? No, people are miserable. People just because they remember the people that they lost, they don't really move on. And we see states of our Avengers, and they are doing their different things. Captain America is starting some kind of help group where he was uh, counseling, I think, one of the Russo brothers. I don't know if it's Anthony or Joe, but it was pretty weird to see him talking with one of the directors. Black Widow seems to be the one that's hit the hardest. She's still at the Avengers headquarters. She's trying to coordinate all the surviving members of the Avengers, in like well, maybe not even the Avengers, just all the heroes: Captain Marvel, War Machine, Okoye. She's trying to coordinate all the mission, and there's like barely any mission. It's all a bunch of boring stuff that's not really for superhero, but she's like struggling to find something to do while making some sandwich. And she after she could just spontaneously burst into tears. That's like she's really having a hard time dealing with this. Beyond that, she's worried about Clint Barton, Hawkeye, who seems to be on a killing spree since his family got dusted. Uh, but then I think this happened a little bit earlier. We cut to the MVP of the whole movie, the one that saved the world, and that is Master Splinter. It was a rat. Okay, it was a rat. Maybe it's supposed to be Mickey Mouse, because it's under the Disney banner. A mouse saved the world. Come on. The mouse, uh, the mouse touched one button on the quantum realm machine. One freaking button. It is what it is. The machine turned on. Scott Lang was spat out from the machine. He the security guard at that scene was played by Ken Jeong. You might know him from, I don't know, Transformers 3 or the Hangover movies. That's where I know him from. I really don't like that actor, but he doesn't have a lot of presence in this one. It's just a cameo. Scott Lang got out of the quantum zone, and he doesn't know jack shit about what happened. He realized that half the universe was, at least half the world was just disappeared, and he saw all these giant tombs, well, more like monuments in San Francisco, just with all the names of the people who disappeared. He went there to look for Cassie, but he saw himself. So he went back to his house and he saw Cassie she had grown up now. I mean, she's still a teenager, but the last time she left, Cassie was still just a little girl. And that was a Cassie 5 years later. She wasn't dusted, and I think the actor they hired to play the grown-up Cassie was amazing, and she had just like 2 scenes with Scott Lang, and they already have a very genuine father-daughter chemistry. I'm maybe a little mixed up in the order of things from now on, but I think that then Scott went to the Avengers headquarters and he met Cap and Black Widow. He explained that he didn't really feel like 5 years went down in the quantum realm. It was more like 5 hours to him, so he deduced that this if they manage to control some of the scientific factors in the quantum realm, they may be able to time travel. Basically, he believes they can make a time machine, so they go look for Tony because Tony is smart. Tony figures things out. But Tony, we called Tony, and he we realized he and Pepper had a daughter called Morgan, and they were joking about having a kid called Morgan at the beginning of Infinity War, and yeah, they completely acted upon it. Holy shit, Kyrie Irving is fucking. Never mind. Back to Endgame. And it's really. It just looks really nice to see him settling down and having a life. Then the Cap and Black Widow and Scott Lang, they arrive at their doorstep to fuck things up for him. They explain this time heist thing, as Scott Lang so elegantly calls it. But of course, Tony is not impressed with all this. He thinks it's too risky. Particularly, the others are not exactly caring about the risky part because they just want to go to the way it was. They want to reverse this awful situation, but Tony understandably does not seem so keen on going back because he has a honestly he personally, his life seems better. He has a daughter. He's happily married with Pepper. He doesn't seem to have the whole world on his shoulder. At least that's what it seems on the surface. So he turns them down. But after they left, you can see that he is actually researching on this time travel idea. Whether that was just a one night's work for him, or has he actually been doing this for some time? He just didn't get the correct inspiration until now. I don't know, but he figured it out because Tony is smart. Tony figured out time travel, and he had a adorable scene with his daughter. Look, the movie is 3 hours. You might think that it shouldn't have time to introduce a new character as in his daughter and actually have Tony spend a lot of time with her. But this shit is important. It really pays off in the end. And what I really admire, one of the things I really admire about Avengers Endgame is that it's not afraid to go slow. Yeah, this is the culmination movie. This is the ensemble movie. This is the movie that ends it all. And this is a movie that's going to end a lot of arcs that's built up in the first 21 movies. It's going to have a lot of shit in it, but when things are due for some screen time, they gave them the appropriate screen time to play out in the emotions. This is a prime example of that, and they do pay off. Let me see what happened next. Oh yeah, after Tony turned them down, they went to look for supposedly a bigger brain, and what they found is Hulk, Bruce Banner, except it's not really Bruce Banner, and it's not also not Hulk. It is Professor Hulk. I think that's the name of this version of the character in the comics. Basically, it's Bruce Banner. It's Bruce Banner's mind with Hulk's body, as he calls it, the best of both worlds. He's basically a comic relief character. Because he has this Hulkish body, but he has all the Mark Ruffalo charm. I think this character is pretty charming, but I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of disappointed with how the Hulk's arc. Like, the Russo brothers is so great with all these character arcs, especially with Iron Man, Cap, Thor, but with Hulk, they always seem to have some kind of trouble with him. Between the two Avengers directors, Joss Whedon and the Russo brothers, I think Joss Whedon does Hulk better, and the Russo brothers does everybody else better. So yeah, this Russo brothers I believe Russo brothers are the best directors for the MCU, but I don't think they really get Hulk. And I know it is supposed to be the end of the arc for Hulk for the past few movies. Especially, in fact, their in explanation for the Hulk's behavior in Infinity War never really convinced me either. You know, um, in Infinity War, Hulk had this condition that he just can't Hulk out. Let me go to Houston Rockets. Yeah. And I always believed that the reason for Bruce Banner not being able to Hulk out in Infinity War is that he was just scared. Hulk was scared.
Round
Hulk
two
was.
action of the NBA playoffs about to get underway.
Holy
And we're here to
shit!
bring you all the action.
They actually added round two in the commentary. That's impressive. I always thought that Hulk was just scared of Thanos because Thanos beat him so easily, and that's something Hulk never really experienced. I mean, he's lost battles before, but he got Thanos just so easily wiped the floor with him, and that's kind of new to Hulk. And Hulk in the MCU has always had a kind of childish mind state, so it's not unthinkable that he in this case he's just scared. And I was kind of expecting him to get unscared, to man up in Endgame. But the Russo brothers in their interviews they explained that the reason of Hulk's behavior in Infinity War is he has his issues with Banner. He believes Banner is just using him for battles and not really respecting him as a person, as another personality that should have this. I guess he should have the same right. Yeah, I don't really know about that. It's not a theory. I mean, the directors confirmed it. I don't really know about that way of explaining it. I mean, before Infinity War, it was Thor Ragnarok, and Banner was Hulk for 2 years. So what's this? So if anything, it should be Bruce Banner complaining about Hulk not treating him as a valuable person. And I don't really see this Professor Hulk arc in Endgame as a continuation, as a solution to the Hulk Banner problem, because obviously Banner still didn't respect Hulk as a person. I mean, this is exactly, if the Russos are right, I mean, how could they not be right? This is exactly what Hulk was complaining about. You just want me for battle. You don't really want my personality. You don't see me as a person. You're using me. And how do we solve that? Bruce Banner just completely eradicates Hulk's personality and keeps his powers. This is not how you deal with relationship problems. That being said, I think the effects on Professor Hulk is amazing. You see all the micro expressions of Mark Ruffalo, and he is entertaining, so it's not a huge issue. Anyway, they find Bruce, and there was a pretty entertaining scene of him, kids taking selfies with Hulk. I mean, we've kind of seen something like this. There were girls taking selfies with Thor in Ragnarok. And they decided to do some time travel test with Scott Lang. It was, and I think one of the funniest scenes in the movie is when their time travel experiment is fucked up, and Scott doesn't really travel to the past. He becomes his past or future self. Like he becomes young. He becomes a child, and then an old man, and then a baby. And at that point, Thor, the Hulk actually was considering keeping baby, just keeping the baby state. They're like, he's turning back. He's a baby. I mean, he's still Scott. He'll grow. Just yeah, that's not gonna happen. So And now that I think about it, did they just make an immortality machine? I know it's not time travel that they are imagining. It's not really how they are, how they think it should work. But you just turned a grown ass man back to a child or a baby. You just gave him immortality. You solved the death. Congratulations, but we'll never talk about that again. Um, just so they didn't. Cap went out for some air because the experiment was disaster. Then he saw this luxurious car driving towards the Avengers headquarters with top speed, and I love it when they show that because Tony drives very fast. It's one of the very neat callbacks that you really have to know the MCU very well to notice. Tony has a thing with fast cars. There was a one scene in Iron Man 1 where he was driving to attend that party his own party that he was not invited to. Remember that shit? There was one scene of him just driving his sports car super fast during busy traffic. I think it's part of his reckless personality. And then of course there's Iron Man 2 where he actually drove a race car. Before Whiplash ruined everything, of course. And Tony brought Cap's shield back. And so this was kind of officially ending their civil war, I guess. And I don't remember if this happened earlier or after, but they also had to go recruit the other Avengers. The Avengers need to it's almost like the first sequence of the first Avengers movie where they went and get everybody. They have to get everybody back because it's been 5 years, and people are doing their own things. So Hulk and Rocket, they went to, I guess, Northern Europe. I guess they went to Norway in a place called the New Asgard, which is apparently now just a fishing village where they would find King Thor. And they met Valkyrie there. And when they finally saw Thor, I don't think any of us expected the state that he's in. Is the Big Lebowski, which Tony actually made a reference about that. Which it gets you thinking, doesn't it? Because if the Big Lebowski as a movie exists in the MCU, I mean, is he still played by Jeff Bridges? Because Jeff Bridges has Obadiah Stane, who is the antagonist in Iron Man 1, a person that Tony Stark grew up knowing. But if not Jeff Bridges, who else can play the dude? This is a serious question here. Well, the universe is breaking down upon us. But yeah, Thor is fat. Thor apparently has done nothing but drinking and playing Fortnite for the past 5 years. I mean, yeah, for the past 5 years. Which is Fortnite still gonna be a thing in 2023? I guess the world is in mourning, so probably not that many games are being made. But apparently kids are still playing Fortnite. I don't hate Fortnite, by the way. I don't even know too much about it. It kind of seems funny because this is official product placement because Fortnite is having a crossover with the MCU. Not a big crossover, just you can use Thanos in Fortnite, I guess. I don't really know. But it's a hilarious scene, just Thor threatening some kid over the mic. It's like, yeah, this is my life now. This is my conquest these days. Because I really think this is I've heard complaints that they are playing Thor too much for jokes, but I really think this is a great arc for him. Thor has been the one character that has been consistently getting stronger and stronger and stronger. He had a massive upgrade in power level in Thor Ragnarok, then another massive upgrade in Thor in Infinity War when he acquired the Stormbreaker, with which I might add he cut through the power ray of Thanos' gauntlet with all 6 Infinity Stones attached on it, and he just so very closely almost straight up killed Thanos if he had he went for the head. But it really shows that that's exactly what's been eating up to him, because Thor has the by far the longest losing streak in the MCU. He has lost so many people. He lost his mother, his brother, his father, Heimdall, the Warriors 3. Jane broke up with him. Apparently, Lady Sif is nowhere to be found. Asgard is destroyed. Probably half his population is. I get half his. I'm guessing he lost half his population with Hela. Then another half when Thanos assaulted the ship, and then another half when the snap happened, because the snap doesn't care. So when you're really thinking about it, it's no wonder that he lost. The whole Asgardian population is just a village on Earth. The fact and he also feels that the loss of half the universe lives is on him, and in a weird way that kind of is, because he just missed it by so little. He missed the chance to save everyone by a hair, and he took it really, really hard. So yeah, you could kind of play it as comedy. You can laugh at it and be comfortable with it, but it's also really sad. But then, of course, he agreed to go with it because Rocket promised that there's alcohol on the ship. On the other front, we cut to a scene in Japan, which was really freaking awesome. One of the best action scenes in the movie. One of the best. And it was a one-shot sequence of a masked guy taking out the entire Japanese mob, and we all know who it is. It's Hawkeye, or should we say Ronin. And it's a really awesome one shot. I love those one shots. Kind of reminds me of the Daredevil one shots. I mean, not on that level, to be honest, but it's still great. And we don't really see a lot of these in the MCU movies. After he took down the mob boss, Black Widow showed up, and it didn't take her a lot to convince him to come back. She just gave him give him a little bit of hope that his family might be recoverable, and he just came along. And Clint volunteered to go for the test run of the pin particles. So it's another time travel experiment with Tony's formula and the pin particles, I guess. And it was successful. He traveled back to a time where his family was alive, and so they knew it was possible. And they started counting exactly where and when they would be going to recover the Infinity Stones and do the snap themselves and stab everybody back. And they realized, I think this is kind of a little joke on themselves, but they realized that if they pick the right time, they could potentially find 3 Infinity Stones in New York alone. So they split into several teams. Oh shit. They split into several teams to recover the Infinity Stones, and they go back in time to some of the previous movies, and it's really a amazing journey down memory lane, I guess. Tony, Steve, and Hulk. Let me see who else. This is the New York party, and Scott. They are these the only one? Yeah, I think so. They were the ones who traveled back in New York to find the three stones. Hulk went after met Ancient One in the New York Sanctorium. I'm not really sure if the Time Stone should be here at this instant, and if it were, how did they know about it? Because usually the Ancient One operates not in New York. But I guess at this time she is. I don't know how they know about it, but Hulk met her and they have a great conversation. I just love the Ancient One. The Hulk was looking for Doctor Strange, and the Ancient One said, "Ah, you're 5 years too early." Like that, she's really powerful. She knows how important Stephen Strange is going to be for the cause, but yeah, so she obviously refused to give up the Time Stone. It is her duty to protect it. And when Hulk mentioned that Stephen Strange was supposed to protect the Time Stone, but he gave it up willingly, which tipped off Ancient One that he might have a higher purpose, and so she gave it up because she trusted Strange that much. And this is really good to know. Remember in Doctor Strange when she first met Steven, she didn't even initially take him in. She almost rejected him, and it wasn't just always a smooth relationship between them. And now we know that she really believed in what he could be, but she needed to be harsh on him, at least initially, so he can get to where they are. It's kind of like Doctor Strange knowing exactly what they should do to win the day finally, but choosing to let them lose it at first because this is the only way so they can win eventually. It gets really confusing with these time travel, with the ability to see through time. I wonder if anybody's watching live, by the way. I didn't open the chat, so I don't know. I can't really tell. Maybe I can tell from the other screen. Give me a minute. Yeah, there we go. I don't think anybody's here. So Bruce got the time stone pretty easily. It was just a conversation, and he managed to persuade the ancient one eventually. Things started to happen. As where things really go interesting is with Captain America. He went after the Loki's scepter. This was in the Battle of New York, and Loki was just apprehended. His scepter was taken by a bunch of SHIELD agents, but they were actually Hydra agents because there was Agent Sitwell, there was Rumlow, who would one day become Crossbones. This would be revealed in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, but not at this time. And one of my favorite scenes in the movie, and one of the most hilarious ones, is when Cap went into the elevator full of Hydra agents and the scepter, and it looked like they were going to recreate the elevator fighting in the Winter Soldier, which is one of my favorite action scenes in MCU history. And I got really giddy about it, but they done something even better. They showed just Cap just got smarter than just rushing into a fight when he could avoid the fight. So he asked them to give him the scepter. He said he got new orders that he would be taking care of it, and the others were going to fight him for it. And Cap leaned over to Sitwell's head and whispered, "Hail Hydra!" And actually, my theater just clapped. the first time I saw this, and I watched this in Hong Kong. This Asian theater experiences, they don't really clap all that much. We laugh at the appropriate moments, but clapping, yelling, or cheering, these are not common. But this got a really big reaction because it's really awesome. Uh, you could just see Sidwell and Rumlow's faces. They were in complete shock because Captain America just said "Hail Hydra," and they were probably thinking, "What the fuck is going on? Since when is Captain America one of us? Why didn't I get a memo for this? Like, why are we even doing this if Captain America is in our rank?" But the drama didn't stop with him there. Earlier, there was a slight hiccup with Iron Man and Ant-Man's mission. They were supposed to go after the Space Stone, which is the Tesseract, also involved in the Avengers plot. And they almost got it. Ant-Man disabled Iron Man. And I don't mean just disabled his suit. He disabled Iron Man. They gave him a cardiac arrest, the 2012 version of Iron Man. And they did start our current Stark already got the suitcase containing the Space Stone, and he was walking away when the 2012 Hulk just happened to come out of the I guess it's the stairs corridor, because he had to take stairs because he can't take the elevator, and he was complaining there's too much stairs. So there was this little accident that eventually led to Loki taking the Tesseract and just teleporting away. Does that affect the future of MCU? Does that mean Loki is out there somewhere alive? Is that how we get a Loki TV show in Disney Plus later this year? I don't know. I don't think so, but maybe. So we have this really big problem. They have limited Pym particles, and they need Pym particles to make these time jumps. But Hank Pym is no longer with us, so this is all they got. They missed the chance. They blew it. But the side effect of them blowing it is, after Captain America successfully got the scepter by pretending to be Hydra, he met his own older self, who was out there strolling because he was looking for Loki, and he saw another Captain America. He just thought it was Loki. And they had a little fight for the scepter, and the 2012 Cap said his famous line, "I can do this all day." And the current Cap is almost annoyed by it. He says, "I know, just stop saying it. It was cool the first time. It's lame now." He was kind of annoyed by himself at how just righteous, how completely stoic he was back then, because that's kind of how Cap was in the first Avengers. And like I said, I don't think Joss Whedon makes the best versions of all these characters except Hulk. I think Cap was kind of boring in the first Avengers movie. His character got a significant upgrade in the Winter Soldier. But it appears that the boring Cap is actually the better fighter, because he was at the upper hand with the current Cap all the time. He was choking our Cap when our Cap got smart again and said, and barely just said, "Bucky is alive," and sure enough, that got the old Cap hesitate, because this is kind of what Captain America has been all about. As soon as anybody mentions Bucky, he just forgets what he's doing, and he's taking advantage of his own mental weakness, which is kind of funny. So he defeated his older self by taking advantage of that. when they discovered there was a problem that Tony's mission got a little problematic, they decided to use their only the pin particles that they were supposed to use to go back home for another time jump, and this time they would be jumping further back to the 1970s in New Jersey. I don't really know how they can choose the location of time jump now that I think about it. Usually, when you think you're traveling through time, you go to the exact the same. You either go to your where your older self would be, or you just stay exactly where you are at the time at the location of your time machine. You just travel back to a different time. You don't exactly shift location, but it appears their time machine is not just the time machine, it's also the teleporter. The technology doesn't really add up. So they went to New Jersey in the 1970, which is a time and a place that this is the only time and the place during their little time travels that we haven't really seen before. This is where Captain America was born. This location has appeared in both Cap 1 and Cap 2. And this is basically the place for emotions. Tony just got the Tesseract in this version with no problem. Let me just choose another game to play. Screw it, just give me a random team. Okay. Team Giannis, give me another random team. Oklahoma. I think I'm gonna use Oklahoma to play Team Giannis. And in this place, Tony got a little bit of closure with his father, Howard Stark. They talked about the prospect of having kids. At this time, Tony is actually a father, and Howard's wife, who is Tony's mother, obviously, is pregnant with Tony, and they had a very interesting conversation. Cap almost ran into his old flame, Peggy Carter. You know, I think Peggy is really such a surprisingly prominent character in the MCU. She was the first time she appeared in Cap 1. I think most of us expected her to be a one-off, because this is Cap's period piece. And at the end of the movie, Cap was transported to modern days. She wasn't supposed to appear again, but counting Endgame, this is kind of her 5th appearance in the MCU movies. Not to mention, she has 2 seasons of TV show of her own. This kind of showcases how successful she is as a character. I mean, so yeah, they finally got the space stone, no problem. So that's 3 Infinity Stones down. Black Widow and Hawkeye, they teamed up to go to Vormir and to retrieve the Soul Stone. And you know, when people saw, they don't know what's going to happen, but everybody who saw Infinity War at this point would know what's going to go down, because it's the Soul Stone. You gotta sacrifice that which you love. And sure enough, Red Skull appeared again, gave them the same ground rules, and they had to decide who among them should die to get the stone. And they both decided it should be themselves, and they have a fight just to decide who gets to die. I mean, they both want to be the one to die. It's really a good action scene, and it keeps the suspense till the very last minute. Neither of them can get a clear road to die from the other one. They both want to sacrifice themselves. and they use all the tricks in their books to prevent the other one from committing suicide. And but in the end, it's Natasha who succeeds, and she gets to drop herself to the bottom, just like in a very similar in a very similar place like Gamora in the last movie. But of course, Gamora is thrown in there against her will. So Clint gets the Soul Stone. Uh, another branch of is to get the Mind Stone, which comprise Rocket and Thor. They have to extract the ether from. They went back to 2013 Asgard, which is the set piece of Thor: The Dark World. I'm really surprised that they went to this one, because The Dark World is not exactly a popular MCU movie. It's not like Battle of New York, which is a fan favorite. Everybody would like to go back to it. The Dark World, man, not really, but it is Asgard in its prominence, and it is a very necessary place to go back to. So what I'm really surprised was Natalie Portman has a one or two scenes in this movie as Jane, and I really didn't expect that. I don't know if she really got her back to shoot new scenes, or did they have stunt double, the body double, and just CG her face on her, or did they use stock footage? I don't know how, but there were two scenes featuring Natalie Portman. And one of them is up close, which surprised the hell out of me. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't. It wouldn't really surprise me if that really is Natalie Portman coming back for one cameo. Because Endgame really brings everyone together. And Thor, the Lebowski Thor, the fat Thor, has a breakdown. He has no self confidence in himself on anything. He just wants to keep drinking. His confidence level is kind of like Luke in The Last Jedi. He just thinks he's a menace. I gotta stay away from everybody. I can't get anything right. But he met his mother, Frigga, and this was the day where Frigga was going to be killed by Malekith, the dark elf, the villain in the Dark World. Holy shit. And he met his mother. They had a talk. His mother comforted him on him feeling himself as a failure, and she gave some really good lines in that conversation, like the best way to be a hero. I'm paraphrasing here. It's not going to be word to word exact. Best way to be a hero is to be the best version of yourself. I think that's how she put it. It's really it's really inspiring line. They have some great dialogue in this movie. And so she gave Thor this huge boost in morale that made him regain his own self-esteem. Also advised him to eat some salad. That's my mother gives similar advices to me all the time. Holy shit. What the fuck, Paul George? I'm kind of distracted by both games and movies. I'm kind of not doing either of these things too well. But anyway, go back to Endgame. This is the Mind Stone is down, and the only one left is the Power Stone. The Power Stone they got easily enough, which is on Morag at the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy 1. Nebula and War Machine were there on that planet waiting for Peter Quill to show up. And it was also another hilarious scene. You see Quill at the beginning of Guardians 1 uh, dancing and listening to his Walkman, and we see that from the perspective of third parties of Nebula and Rhodey, and when we were seeing that same scene from the perspective of Quill, it was happy, it was party like, he was dancing to great music, but seeing the same from an outside point of view is just hilariously embarrassing. And they knocked him down very easily, and Nebula got the Power Stone. But before she could teleport back like they planned to, things fucked up. Things really got messed up because there were other people in that timeline at that time looking for these Infinity Stones, and those are specifically Thanos, Gamora, and the Nebula from that time. And things started to go wrong because apparently Nebula used is some kind of cloud network. So the older Nebula, when our Nebula went to the future, when we went back to the past, her memories from her own just her memories, what she saw, even the from 2013, 2023, she brought all those back. You can kind of understand that she automatically uploaded all these memories to some cloud server in 2014, which is shared with the old Nebula. So they both had some malfunction, and Thanos saw everything that was recorded from our Nebula's eyes during the past few years, including his own death. So he knows what will happen. He knows that he will be, he knows that these are the people he's going to finish the snap. He's going to accomplish exactly what he set out to do, but his accomplishment is not exactly met with gratitude, and is going to result in his death. And he knows that the Avengers will be there to try to stop him, and the Avengers are even now trying to undo what he already did. So what he does is he captures our good Nebula. Let's just call it good Nebula and the bad Nebula. That's a very simple way of saying it, but it'll have to do. He captured the good Nebula and he replaced it with bad Nebula, who at that time was just die hard on trying to impress her father no matter what. So I think did the sound just go out on me on this game? It doesn't matter. Luckily, I'm not recording it for the gameplay. And at any rate, the team lost Natasha. They do not realize that the Nebula that came back is the wrong one, but they held a simple service for Natasha, and since they have all the stones, I still have sound effect. Since they have collected all the Infinity Stones, they decided to use it to snap everyone back. They used a glove that's made by Tony Stark, which I find it kind of cheapens the whole thing. About Thanos having to go find the dwarves, Eitri and all the other dwarves, to make him an Infinity Gauntlet. The gauntlet is supposed to be so unique that it's made by the guys who made Mjolnir and the Stormbreaker, who have a dying star as their fuel. And Tony Stark just made a similar glove because he's Tony Stark. He can figure out time travel. He can do all of this shit. I think if they added a few lines in there, it can also be simply explained away. You could kind of say, I mean, after they killed the the original Thanos, his broken gauntlet is just lying there on the floor. I think maybe Stark took it back and reverse engineered one. Anyway, they assembled the gauntlet, put on all the Infinity Stones, and they had a quick conversation about who's going to snap it. And Thor volunteered to do it, but Tony wouldn't let him. I think it's because Thor was not really in a good place lately. He kinda has this PTSD. He might even be suicidal, and because Tony Stark has a history of anxiety in Iron Man 3, he maybe recognizes the symptom. That's how I interpret it. And so he stops Thor from doing the snap because he's going to do more damage to himself. At the end, it's Hulk who does the snap. Or should we say the unsnapping? He uses one snap to undo the other snap. It's complicated. So Hulk says this thing is mainly Gamma, so he obviously should be the one to do it. Which is kind of convenient because I don't remember this thing being Gamma when it was introduced in Infinity War, but I guess they just invented a reason for Hulk to be the primary candidate to use it. So it apparently caused a lot of pain for Hulk. It burned half his body, but he finally managed to snap it. After he snapped, he collapsed, and immediately things started to change. Like the world seemed happier somehow. There was birds chirping outside the window, like life is coming back to the planet. And Hawkeye got a phone call from his wife, which really solidifies that the snap was successful and everyone is back. But there was no time to celebrate, because while they were busy doing the unsnapping, bad Nebula, who in the disguise of good Nebula, is tampering with their time machine, and she called the Thanos' huge ship through the time portal. So immediately after Hulk successfully snapped everyone back, seemingly so, the entire Avengers facility was bombarded by Thanos' ship. For a moment I thought they fucking died because that building was destroyed, but the Avengers being Avengers, they were kind of fine. Not really fine, some were trapped under the debris, but they were still alive. Thanos brought beamed down from his ship, asked Bad Nebula to continue to search for the Infinity Stones and bring them to him, while he just sat on a rock to chill the fuck out, because they knew they would send their own heroes after him. So we have, well, who better to fight him than the top three of MCU, our big three: Fat Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man. The three of them went down to Thanos, and just for another fight. And this Thanos is from 2014. He is not exactly the Thanos that we knew from Infinity War. This one is really the Mad Titan. The last Thanos was almost like a protagonist in Infinity War. That movie gave him so much character, I couldn't really believe it. But he's not exactly like how we expected him to be, and I love that. But this Thanos is more like how we imagined him to be. Remember that little teaser for Infinity War where he said that line, the line that was never in the actual movie, where he said something about this does put a smile on my face. This is more in line with that Thanos. He was like, he thought he kind of regretted that he only snapped half the universe, and he decides to up his game this time and just reduces the entire universe back to Adam and create a new one, a universe that is finally grateful for him, because apparently the half that survived cannot truly thrive like he imagined they would be if they remember what they lost, and they can't get over it. Apparently Thanos is not very patient. I mean, 5 years later, just one planet doesn't really do what he thinks, and he decides that the experiment is a failure. But I guess that's why he's the Mad Titan. He actually he has a good point with all his plans in Infinity War, but in the end, what he wants is control. He has a sense of compulsive. He has a compulsive sense of being in control, and this is just snapping the universe in half is just a manifestation of him being in control of the whole situation. That's how he wants it, so that's how he's gonna get it. If one day he suddenly decides the whole universe has to go, he's going to do that. And I really love this development because it ups the stake further. You think the stake isn't high enough in Endgame? Well, it just got even bigger because up to this point, think about it. Exactly what would happen if the Avengers lost again? I mean, the world would just remain the same, in the same miserable, depressing, half gone kind of state. If they lost, they lost. I mean, they would probably die in the process, but the world will just move on in its current course, the course that has been going on for 5 years. But now they have a chance of actually fucking it up so bad that they might make it worse. They might make they might kill the other half if they don't succeed. And they almost don't, because Thanos, even without the Infinity Gauntlet, gives them a real hard fight. I guess maybe if Thor could just aim for the head again if he was in peak shape. He wasn't. By the way, he recalled the Mjolnir in when he was in Asgard, so he's dual wielding now. He has both Mjolnir and the Stormbreaker, and he has the all the enhanced ability, the Thunder ability he got in Ragnarok, and that makes him really powerful, but still not able to truly beat Thanos. Iron Man, he was knocked out, and there was a moment when Thor was fighting him. Thor was pinned down. His hammer Mjolnir was knocked to the ground, and he called Stormbreaker, but Thanos called Stormbreaker and about to press into Thor's chest, like Thor did to him in Infinity War. And that moment, there was this one shot of the hammer lifting from the ground, and I kind of knew what happened, and I got really giddy because that the way the hammer was lifted up, apparently somebody lifted it off the ground. You couldn't really see the hand, but it's not the kind of movement the Mjolnir would make when it was called. It's lifted manually, and sure enough, the Mjolnir knocked Thanos over, saved Thor, and went back to the hands of Captain freaking America. It was another big reaction moment from my theater. And I couldn't even describe how fucking excited I was. It was teased earlier in Age of Ultron. That scene where they were at the party where they're trying to lift Thor's hammer in turn. You could see Captain America when it was his turn, he was completely phoning it in. He moved the hammer by an inch, and that got Thor a little bit worried. But then he seemingly he can truly lift it. Is it because he's really actually not worthy? I don't think so. When you look back to that scene, it's very obvious that Cap was not actually trying the rest of the way through. I think he realized that he is actually worthy of it, but he doesn't want to. He's too nice. He's such a good person. He doesn't want to embarrass his friend. He doesn't want to embarrass Thor because Thor was just bragging to everybody about how worthy he is. He doesn't want to take away his moment, so he just decided to play along. I mean, Cap is so fucking nice. But yeah, there's no pretending this time. I mean, fuck Thor's dignity. He has none already. So Cap got the hammer, and he did some really crazy shit with both hammer and the shield. And it also stayed very consistent with the lore when Odin put a spell on the hammer. He said those who are worthy will inherit Thor's power. And Cap really did that. He could really use the hammer. It's not just a throw and catch thing. He could swing it like Thor did. You could summon lightning with it, and he gave a really good fight to Thanos. But eventually, because Thor was pinned down, Iron Man was knocked unconscious. Cap was fighting Thanos alone, and he really couldn't do it. I mean, even with the Mjolnir, he can't really stand toe to toe with the Mad Titan for very long, and Thanos just swung at him with his double sword. I don't know how he got that. It's a new weapon, and Cap had to just take the hits with his shield, and his shield is breaking apart, kind of like the vision Iron Man saw in Age of Ultron. Again, a lot of callbacks to Age of Ultron. The Russo brothers, they don't just call back to their own movies. They really know every MCU movie by heart. So it was at a very desperate moment. All of our three heroes are down. Cap's shield is like only half of it is still left, and then Thanos, just to make matters worse, just to add insult to injury, decides to, at this point in time, summon his entire army. So we see all the monsters from Infinity War that on the Battle of Wakanda, all the Chitauri's riding space bikes, and those I don't really know the terms to it. Anyway, the armies we saw, the cannon fodder from Avengers 1, plus the cannon fodder from Avengers 3. I mean, Ultron isn't here. And they are all on the battlefield, standing beside Thanos, along with his Black Order, Ebony Maw, and the other children. It was... And Captain America, with his broken shield, stands in front of all of them, facing all of them, just preparing to die for it. It was such a heartfelt, beautiful moment. And I thought he was going to say, "I can do this all day," but he didn't. And apparently, that line is in everybody's mind because it was earlier referenced. And just when things seemed desperate, Cap received a broken static transmission, and it was the voice of Sam Wilson, Falcon, who was apparently obviously dusted in the last movie. And Sam said, "On your left," which is a callback from the beginning of the Winter Soldier. Then you see a Doctor Strange magical portal appearing on Cap's left. Stepping out of the portal are Black Panther, Shuri, and Okoye. So, yeah, so at that point, just everybody realizes what is going to happen, and we're going to have one hell of a scene, and that's exactly what it is. The thing is, at that point, you'd be forgiven that if you have already forgotten about the previous unsnapping, which was successful. I mean, they did confirm it was successful. That's the crazy thing about it. We saw Hawkeye's family calling him, so apparently it worked. But at that point, because the fight between the Big Three and Thanos was so intense, and the situation was so desperate, you would be forgiven if you had already forgotten about it. And after that, we see dozens, maybe hundreds of portals appearing in the air, and everybody steps in. Everybody that you can possibly imagine from the first 21 movies of the MCU, the entire legacy of Marvel Cinematic Universe, the entire history, a lot of people's childhoods, a lot of people's adulthoods. They're all pretty much standing there. Doctor Strange, um, Wong, all the other wizards, Valkyrie, riding riding on a Pegasus or something similar. I'm almost getting teared up just thinking about it. And all the Wakanda soldiers, all the Asgardians. I mean, not all the Asgardians. Whatever Asgardians left, I guess they just put armor and spears in their hands and yeah, go to fight. The Guardians of the Galaxy are back. Spider-Man is back. Everybody who's dusted is back. Everybody who's able to fight is here. Pepper Potts is here with her rescue armor, which is a callback to earlier in this movie when Stark said to his daughter that Pepper never wears anything that he made. Well, she's wearing something he made now to help him in this final battle. And this is everybody who is good versus everybody who is bad. I mean, not everybody, just a big army, a huge army. And then you'll get the immortal line, which has been everybody's been waiting for the past 11 years. Is when Captain America, finally shouted out not even shouting it out, just kind of dramatically said, "Avengers assemble," and you get the Avengers main theme playing, and you get a huge panning shot of the Avengers and Thanos' army charging towards each other in this epic fight that's beyond anything that I can describe, far beyond my ability of description. It's just about the most epic thing that you can possibly imagine. When they started doing Avengers crossover movies and just constantly upping the game in the superhero genre, this is probably your wildest dream. Hell, this is probably your wet dream. I gotta admit, the first time I saw this scene, I almost missed the first minute of the battle because my mind was buzzing. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I couldn't believe that this is actually on screen playing in front of me right now. And I got too distracted by my own incredulity. I didn't even focus on what was actually happening on screen. I was too enamored by the fact that it happened at all. It's only at the in my second time watching the movie that I finally took notice of the details of the battle for the first minute of it. Couple highlight scenes from the battle. Let me see. There's just too much. Okay, at one point, Spider-Man had a reunion with Tony Stark, which was really sweet. Spider-Man was, Peter, he's just like usual. He's talking all the time. He said he awoke on Titan. He thought he just passed out. And Doctor Strange said, "Oh, it's been 5 years." And it's been 5 years, and we need your help. And Tony didn't say anything. He just hugged him, which again is another callback. There are so many fucking callbacks. There's another callback to Spider-Man Homecoming when Tony was reaching for the door. He said, "This is not a hug. I'm just reaching the door for you. This is a hug now. This is a pure man hug right now. And they got this plan to. They seemingly somehow actually had a plan during all these chaotic battles. They needed to return the time stones to their respective timelines. And to do that, they have to get the Infinity Gauntlet, not really the Stark version of Infinity Gauntlet. I don't know. Maybe the E3 should sue them for copyright infringement, because this is clearly using their trademark and technology to achieve it. They had to get it to Louis's van, Louis from Ant-Man, because that's their backup time machine. Louis's van became a time machine. That's kind of hilarious to think about. By the way Peter described how he got back, it seems like everybody was just returned to exactly where they were before the dusting, which kind of makes sense, but then it gets you thinking, like, what if you were on an airplane? You would be manifesting in midair and immediately fall to your death. What if you're on a ship? You would be falling into the ocean. Hell, what if you're in a car or on a bus? You will be appearing on the road and likely get rammed by the next vehicle, who definitely won't have time to brake. Shit, this went dark. But let's not worry about them now. Like, there's a battle going on, and they got this pretty great scene of people, of the heroes trying to relay this gauntlet to the van, and got some highlight moment from Black Panther, who ran with it who ran with the gauntlet for a while before passing it to Spider-Man. Spider-Man got to activate his instant kill mode, which is pretty fucking awesome. And there was this one shot that really stuck with me. When he was about to be overrun by Thanos' soldiers, Captain America saw his dilemma, and he yelled out, "Hey, Queens, heads up!" And he threw the Mjolnir at him, and the Mjolnir flew through the sky, and Spider-Man was able to attach his web on the Mjolnir and flew off with the Infinity Gauntlet, which got him temporarily out of trouble. That seemed like a very natural scene in the movie. I didn't give it too much thought when I saw it the first time, but the second time I saw the movie, like, what did I just fucking see? I just saw a scene where Spider-Man on instant kill mode with wearing the Iron Spider suit, holding the Infinity Gauntlet complete with all 6 Infinity Stones, hitching a ride on a flying Mjolnir thrown by Captain America. How the fuck did we get here? Like, this shit started so simple. I mean, it wasn't simple. It started with Tony Stark being kidnapped by a bunch of terrorists and had to make an armor to escape from the cave. Like, the scene that I just described is... It's such a simple scene. It only takes about 5 minutes, but there is so much history. There is so much history between this. This would never make sense if they built the universe in a way that's rushed or undeserving. And I don't want to kind of shit talk the opponent, but on the other side of the bridge is pre-Aquaman DC extended universe, where they go through some really amazing comic book moments in Batman v Superman and the Justice League, but because they never really took the time to develop it like the MCU did, when they arrived, it just seemed rushed and undeserved. And when you come back and see a scene like the one that I just described, it's, I don't mean to talk any bad things about DC, but this is a case where the MCU just does it so well. It makes it look like day and night difference, even though the, the DC counterpart is not exactly all bad. It's just what MCU has been able to achieve for the past 11 years is something that's unlike anything that we've seen. And yeah, at one point, another point in the battle, Thanos had a one-on-one confrontation with Scarlet Witch, and Scarlet Witch would obviously lost vision in the last movie. Here, she said, "You took everything from me." Thanos like, "Bitch, I don't even know you." And Scarlet Witch said, "Yeah, you will," and she fucking almost killed him. She used her powers to, and it almost it was. She hoisted Thanos in midair and almost ripping him in half. And Thanos had to call for a bombing from his own ship to get himself out of trouble. I'm guessing it's because this Thanos doesn't have the Infinity Stones to help him, so when even though he's incredibly strong, he kind of doesn't have anything, doesn't have a really good idea against the Scarlet Witch, which is kind of magic. So it's natural for magic to be kryptonite to brute strength, and Thanos solved the problem by shooting lasers at her. So, guys, science triumphs magic, which triumphs over brutal strength. That's how I see it. So Thanos' ship is bombarding on the entire battlefield, with no prejudice over enemy or their own side. They're just killing everyone, and all of a sudden, all the terrorists stopped shooting and pointed to the sky and started shooting something skyward. And I knew that's a sign of Captain Marvel arriving, and and yeah, Captain Marvel is still really really powerful. Like the stunt that she pulled at the end of Captain Marvel, where she destroyed almost all of the whole Ronan's fleet by herself just by flying through the ship. She did the same with Thanos' ship, and even Thanos looks stunned. Like, what the fuck just happened? There was so Captain Marvel destroyed the ship. She took the Infinity Gauntlet from Peter Parker, and the scene that followed is simultaneously awesome but also kind of distracting. And I get a lot of people might have a problem with this scene, is the all female superheroes get together scene. Honestly, I think the circumstance that allows this scene to happen is a little forced. Like, Captain Marvel gets the gauntlet and she intends to take it to the time machine van. She says, "I don't know how I'm gonna get through this," and the other female heroes gather around her and say, "Yeah, don't worry, she's gonna get help." Okay, the reason this might seem forced is, like, it's just an incredible coincidence that all the female superheroes are just together in one place at one time, because everybody is fighting everybody at this battlefield. And besides, does she really need all that much help? Because that's Captain Marvel. She just went through Thanos' ship like nothing, does she really need Shuri to help her open up a path with her hand blasters, which seemed really insignificant compared to her power level? But it was still a really awesome scene, and particularly, it's a really a reminder of how many female superheroes that MCU has given us all these years, and it's kind of incredible because you don't really think there's this many. Like Captain Marvel is the 21st movie of the MCU, and it's the first one that stars a female hero. This has been a big deal earlier this year, apart from the Wasp, which shares the title credit with Ant-Man. And that is the movie immediately before Captain Marvel. So it has been. This has been a pretty big focus in the media that MCU doesn't. It doesn't. It seems MCU doesn't have that many female superheroes. But look where we are now. Look at this scene. And you can give it a count. Another thing that really got me is something that I only started thinking about after I saw the movie is, despite this being a huge hero shot for all the female heroes in the MCU, there is one glaring omission in the scene, and that is Natasha Romanoff, who earlier died to get the Soul Stone. And Natasha is not just the first female superhero of the MCU. For the longest time, she's also the only one. She has been the only one until, let me see, she debuted in Iron Man 2. She was in the Avengers. She was in The Winter Soldier. For the second female superhero in the MCU, you have to go to Gamora in Guardians of the Galaxy. And the next one would be Scarlet Witch in Age of Ultron. I mean, Scarlet Witch is kind of in the Winter Soldier's post-credit scene, but at that time she was not a hero, so that doesn't count. Oh yeah, and yeah, this, for the longest time, Black Widow has always been the only female superhero of the MCU, and now we have this many. But she's not here. That idea really touched me because it feels like this scene is her legacy. And having thought about that, I don't really care if that scene is forced or not. It still brings out a huge emotional resonance with me. That Captain Marvel was taking the gauntlet to the time machine van, and she almost just got there, but Thanos threw his blade to the van and destroyed it. So there is no sending the gauntlet away from this place for the moment. And they had this and they had Captain Marvel had her confrontation with Thanos, which also showcased her power, but not really. They did a great job balancing her power. They made sure that they showed that she's powerful. She's one of the most powerful of them all, but they don't really overuse her. It's never like she's here to save the day. She's a great contribution, but she doesn't exactly win the battle. During her little battle with Thanos, she started kind of strong. Thanos got the gauntlet, but she was there to keep him from closing his fist, which prevents him from actually snapping. And she put up a good fight. She at one point it seems like she was almost overpowering Thanos. Like she actually could get the gauntlet off his hand, and then Thanos got really smart. He took out the Power Stone, and used it with and punched the Captain Marvel with his other hand, which is kind of consistent with how he did it with Captain America. You remember when Captain America uh, attack with both of his arms in at the end of Infinity War? That one shot that was pretty iconic. Thanos resolved that little problem pretty nonchalantly. It was very easy for him. It was to punch Cap with the other fist that was free. So it's the same tactic with Captain Marvel. It's just with a lot more effort, and he actually had to use one of the stones, the Power Stone specifically, which really hurts like a bitch apparently because Captain Marvel was destroyed by that one punch. She didn't really show up again in the battle. The next time we see her was the ending of the movie. Um, and then we come to almost the end of the battle. Thanos was Thor and Cap. They're trying desperately everything they can to stop Thanos from actually snapping again. This time he's going to destroy everybody. And Iron Man and Doctor Strange, they had a little bit of had a little bit of understanding between them because Doctor Strange told Iron Man in the last movie that there were, however, 14 million possibilities, and only one of them is when they win. He wouldn't tell Iron Man if this is the one because he would, if he knew it would not happen. But in this case, at that instant, he held up one finger to Tony, signifying that this has to be the one possibility where. I hate to say this, but I also did predict this would happen back when Infinity War came out. Okay, by the way, Doctor Strange is kind of sidelined in this battle. I'm guessing it's because Doctor Strange, Iron Man, they both had their big one-on-one battle with Thanos in Infinity War. So in this movie, the one-on-one battle was more reserved to Captain America, Scarlet Witch, Captain Marvel, these characters who didn't get to fight him in Infinity War. Like Doctor Strange he pretty much was a battlefield maintainer. There was a flood. The battle destroyed a dam nearby or something, and there was a flood. So Doctor Strange was busy controlling the flood. He wasn't even in the battle. He signified to Tony that, reminding him that there's only one possibility, and Tony kind of understood that he charged it to Thanos to get the gauntlet, but Thanos seemingly pushed him away and said, "I am inevitable," which is a callback to his earlier de- declaration before he was killed by Thor. He said I am inevitable, and then snapped, but nothing happened. Only the clanking of metal fingers, because that was not the gauntlet. The gauntlet with all the Infinity Stones was worn by Tony. It sent a great energy shot into his body. You can kind of see it's destroying his body. The energy are climbing from his neck to his face, almost like how he almost died from poisoning in palladium poisoning in Iron Man 2. And with even invisible pain, Tony said, I am Iron Man." Obvious callback to how the first Iron Man movie ended. And also a line that he has repeatedly said even in Iron Man 3. And he snapped the finger. he snapped the finger to wipe out, to dust off all the army of Thanos, all the Chitauri's, the Ebony Maw, all his monsters, his ships, and eventually Thanos himself. I mean, Thanos is such a dramatic character. Even his dusting is dramatic. He just sat down, again, just like how the battle began. He sat down on a big rock and then chilled. He was. Thanos is such a great character. I'm gonna miss him. But please don't come back again. So Tony saved everyone, but his body was broken beyond repair. And he had a few farewell moments with Rhodey, Peter, and finally Pepper. And Gwyneth Paltrow is so freaking great in this movie. This is why she has an Oscar. This is why she had an Oscar, and I think this is her best performance as Pepper Potts, maybe ever, maybe since the first Iron Man. But I really loved how she handled this scene. When she was certain that Tony was going to die, she did not break down immediately. She comforted him. She said, "Look at me. We're going to be okay. You can rest now." This is another callback. The callbacks in this movie is crazy. In the earlier scene where they were together, Tony was saying like maybe I can just ignore this mission so I can go to sleep. But Pepper said, "You'll be able to sleep, but will you be able to rest?" Because she knew Tony so well. He has this hero complex. He carries the whole world on his shoulders. He has to save everyone. He won't rest until he does so. And I think deep in her mind, deep in her heart, she knew that she was going to lose Tony, well, unnaturally. He's not going to die of old age. He's going to die trying to right some kind of wrong. And so she kind of was prepared for this, and she just before Tony finally succumbed to his injuries, she was smiling at him, comforting him, assuring him that everything is alright, that he'd saved the world for them, and it's okay for him to rest now, that he's fulfilled his mission. And after the light on Tony's chest finally went out, that's when she started breaking down, and she was just bawling with tears. And it's a really moving, it's a very emotional scene. After that, it was the funeral of Tony Stark, and it was treated with such reverence. There was this amazing one take shot flashing before all of the MCU characters, and they were all standing in their little groups. You see the Hawkeye's family, for example, the Ant-Man's family. You see over here are the Black Panther's family, and over there is that little group. Over here is that little group. It's just a one panning shot. It's really great, and there are some highlights in that too. Like there was this one kid who was standing alone. At that time, I didn't realize who it was, but after doing some digging, it was actually the little kid from Iron Man 3, the one who was tinkering with Tony in his garage. It's such a great move to bring him back again, even though he's just kind of standing alone on his own, kind of lonely. But I almost have forgot about that character, to be honest with you. The Iron Man 3 is not exactly very connected to the rest of the MCU, so it's frequently overlooked. But when I think back on that character, don't you feel like if Marvel and Sony had concluded that deal which allowed Marvel to use Peter Parker's character, don't you think that if before 2013 they had struck that deal, that little kid in Iron Man 3 would have been a perfect introduction to Peter Parker? Like that would have. I mean, I loved his introduction in Civil War, but you can't deny that Peter didn't really need to be in Civil War. He was kind of added the last minute. I mean, his scenes were great. He was such a highlight in the movie. It doesn't really matter. But when you think about the Iron Man 3 kid, that's kind of how Peter should have been. I mean, if imagine if Iron Man, instead of wherever that was, he flew to Queens and he was picked up by this young pre-Spider-Man Peter Parker with a healthy and alive Uncle Ben and his Aunt May for some reason not at home, and Peter has to. But even a younger Peter, not a Spider-Man Peter, would still be a technical genius compared to his peers, and they would share this bond with Stark very early on, and it would be really cute to see them together even back then. And it doesn't even have to change the plot very much. He helps Tony get through his anxiety a little bit. Tony helps him with his tech, maybe give him some scientific ideas. Maybe he gives some ideas that would help him make his Spidey fluid, web fluid, later on, because it's always been kind of an issue for people to believe that a high school student can make infinite web fluid. I mean, with a little help from Stark, that's kind of solved, and it would also give Tony Stark a better reason to seek out Peter Parker in a Civil War when he needed a hand, right? Like he in the Civil War, he just went to Queens to find Peter because we just have to believe that he has been observing this kid doing superhero stuff for a while. But if Peter had previously been introduced in Iron Man 3, that would have been a great callback, and it would explain why Tony has actually paid attention to his activities. I'm getting so sidetracked here. So the funeral movie kind just goes to an end, and they mourn Tony. Scarlet Witch and Hawkeye were mourning together a little bit, respectively, for Vision and Black Widow, and it's really nice to see them together because they have this special bond. This is why in Civil War, Clint Barton was chosen by Cap to save Wanda from her, house arrest. I mean, Clint was the one who recruited Black Widow in the Avengers family. That's what happened in Age of Ultron. When he said, "If you step out of that door, you are an Avenger." MCU, so many callbacks. They're connected so well, so organically. Like, this movie is like a gift wrapped by the MCU to its fans. It's like with a card on it saying, "Thank you for sticking with us for these past 11 years. This one is for you." We see Hawkeye getting his family back. We see Peter going back to school. Like the first thing you get to do after you resurrect from is to go back to school. And he saw Ned. Apparently, Ned is also dusted because he's at the same age. He I guess when Spider-Man Far From Home comes out and you see all the friends of Peter Parker are still there, it doesn't mean that they're all dusted. Because if they're not dusted, they would be 5 years older than Peter. So Ned is dusted, Zendaya is dusted, probably Flash is dusted. Every familiar face in that movie from Spider-Man Homecoming was dusted. That's how they have to explain this. I mean, 50% is a magical number. You can kind of make up any kind of bullshit you want. It's not a high or low number for any kind of thing to happen. You can justify however you want. they also listen to Stark's final recordings, which is very emotional. And at the end, Cap takes on the mission to return all 6 Infinity Stones and the Mjolnir back to the original timeline, so their timelines don't get broken, so they can flow as how they naturally should. And Cap obviously should be the one to do that, because he can wield Mjolnir. By the way, Thor goes off with the Guardians of the Galaxy. Gamora is nowhere to be found. I mean, Star-Lord is kind of happy to have Gamora back, but this is 2014 Gamora. This is pre-Guardians of the Galaxy Gamora, who doesn't even know him. So how is that relationship going to pan out? Is he going to have to court her again? Is that Gamora even still in their timeline? Did she go back? If so, how? If not, where is she? Because she was not at the funeral. Star-Lord was searching for her with his machine, but didn't seem to find her. But I don't think he completed the search anyway. Anyway, Cap was going back, went to the time machine to return the stones. Before he left, he had a moment with Bucky, and he asked Bucky to not do anything stupid before he returned, which is another callback to Captain America, the First Avenger, when Bucky said the same to him before at the Stark Expo, and Tony decided to. At that time, Steve decided to go try out another military draft, which eventually led him to become Captain America. And I think Bucky really just knew what's going to happen. He knew that when the time came for Cap to return, after he deposits all the stones, he's not going to return. And Bucky just knows him so well. And sure enough, Cap didn't return, and instead there was this old man sitting alone on a bench. And Bucky asked Falcon to approach him, and it was an aged Captain America, Steve Rogers, at his probably at his 80th, who surprisingly looks like Clint Eastwood. But hey, if anybody can grow old and look like Clint Eastwood, that's a blessing. And it was really old Cap who apparently stayed behind. And this time he has another tender moment with Falcon. He gave Falcon the shield, and I guess he also the moniker of Captain America. Which we've always been wondering, when that time comes, is it going to be Bucky or Falcon to continue the moniker? And eventually it's Falcon. Why isn't it Bucky? Well, you can come up with reasons, but I'm thinking Bucky is a known international terrorist. That might be a little too sensitive for him to be called Captain America. I think that might be one of the reasons. But I'm also glad that the movie portrayed that scene in a sense that Falcon has Bucky's full blessing to take on the moniker, because Bucky was the one who asked the Falcon to approach the old Cap in the first place, but when Steve offered him the shield, which is literally a shield of approval, Sam looked at Bucky, who nodded at him. It's a very subtle and very tender scene. So I'm kind of wondering, just has that always been Cap's decision for Falcon to take the shield, or is it just whoever approaches me first gets the shield? Because what happens if Bucky was the one who approached him? Like, oh, buddy, I'm so glad to see you again. Yes, I have had a full and happy life, and but the world will have. No, and Bucky says, "I'm happy for you, buddy, but the world doesn't have Captain America anymore." Oh, but the world will. I have brought the shield with me. By the way, can you pass this to Sam over there? He's awfully silent there. That's fucking awkward. I don't even want to think about it. But you know what? What's really awkward that I desperately want to see? I want to see Cap return all the stones back to the original places. I want to see him go to Asgard and jack that ether back to Natalie Portman. I don't care where he. I don't care where he puts it into. I shudder to imagine from where did that rocket raccoon extracted it from. Because he could only reach that area of places, and I mean, we're kind of overthinking this, but I kind of want to see Cap do that to Natalie Portman. But more than that, I want to see. I want to see him return a Soul Stone on Vormir. Now, and I'm just imagining him arriving on Vormir and the Red Skull in his cloak says, "Welcome, Steve Rogers, son of a bitch! What are you doing here?" That's going to be such an awkward conversation between those two. Like, but on the other hand, what can they do to each other? Fight? I mean, what's even the point? Can they even fight? So, yeah, the movie kind of ends there. Sam notices that Cap has a wedding ring on his finger, and he asks, "Are you gonna tell me about her?" Cap slyly replies, "No, I don't think I would." We go back to a flashback in what I think is 1950s, something about that, and it's not exactly where. And you see Cap and Peggy finally doing the dance. Because the thing Cap said after he realized he's missed 70 years is I'm late for a date or I'm late for a dance. He made it up for that. I think a few years after. We don't really know at exactly when he went back to. Is it at the exact time where he left? Is it after he got frozen under the ice? Maybe. If that is the case, then this Cap continued to participate in World War II, and he helped win the war. And I don't know how it proceeded from that. So the big question is this a plot hole? Because the way this movie approaches time travel is kind of delicate. It makes very clear that it doesn't follow the same rules as Back to the Future or the Terminator or any of the other time travel movies. It's kind of like, the way I understand it is just a separate timeline. So the way you interfere with the past of one timeline does not affect the one of your own, which is why they cannot, as Rhodey suggested, go back to kill baby Thanos. The appearance of old Cap kinda contradicts that, because when you think about it, if Cap has lived in this reality for all these years, many things will be different. The war will probably end a lot sooner, and there won't be Hydra infiltration in Shield because Cap would never allow that. Peggy would not marry whoever she was supposed to marry in the first place, which I think is a guy that Cap saved during the first Avenger. I mean, it sucks for that guy, but like, Captain America saved your life, so consider this offering your wife as a sacrifice, as a tribute to, as a life debt, however you see it. So this is how I think happened. I have no way to corroborate this. This is just my theory. My understanding of how this movie works is after Cap returned all the stones back to the original places, those timelines got fixed. Those timelines where from where they took out the Infinity Stones proceeded exactly as how they would, how theirs would, how the main one would. But Cap decided to use his last uh, uh, travel ability with the pin particle to go back to, I don't know, 1940s. Let's just say 40s. And in doing so, I don't think he did that in any way to affect our own timeline, which means the events that we know happened in the MCU still all happened, because it's according to their own rule. It shouldn't affect anything. When Cap returned, it will be in a separate timeline, right? But how is it that we see an old Cap sitting alone on the bench, if he is not living the happy life in our timeline, not exactly our timeline, the main MCU timeline? Because I think he traveled back here somehow, just for this moment. This is the moment he knows every Avenger will be here, just exactly the moment he left. So he returns to this moment, which isn't going to affect the progress of this timeline, but he will be with his friends one more time. And the way I think he could do it is because over these years he could, even though he had only one more chance to teleport when he returned to the 40s, it's been decades. There would be more Pym particles. Hank Pym would make more particles in all these decades, and technically Cap has an infinite amount of resources to do more time travels during this point. So I think he intentionally went back to this timeline just to have this moment. And whether that's feasible, I don't really know. This thing hurts my head when I think about it. Time travel is messy. Time travel almost never makes sense. I think the movie did its best to explain how how it should go. Whether it holds up whether it holds up after a while, after a few years, is something I very much look forward to discussing. So the movie ends with, in maybe 1950s, Captain and Peggy are dancing in their home, and this movie ends with they're sharing a kiss. So there's no end credit scene or mid credit scene in this movie, which I think is appropriate. They have a rundown of all the heroes of the MCU, all the actors, and with ending with kind of motion posters with the main six, the original six Avengers with their own signature, ending with Tony. It's one last goodbye, I guess. And the way I really loved about the Tony picture is it doesn't portray Iron Man. It's a Tony Stark in his suit. And when you think about it, at least when I think about it, well, it's just magical how the character Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, they got developed over separate, different projects, multiple projects over the years, projects that do not even have their names in the title, and their arc is so complete, so wholesome, and they have such a great send off. When I think of comic book even though I don't read a lot of comic books, when I think of the traditional version of Iron Man or Captain America, honestly, I'm still not. They still don't hold too much appeal to me. I still see Iron Man as just a man in a metal suit, Captain America a patriotic soldier, because that's actually how they started here too. But the MCU version of Tony Stark and Steve Rogers has so much much more beyond that. They have actual soul, they have actual character, and really, when I come down to it, I don't give a shit about Iron Man compared to Tony Stark. I don't give a shit about Captain America compared to Steve Rogers. It's MCU has always dragged us into this debate between suit or man, and they choose the right answer every time. It's always the man that matters. The suit is just a glossary and add-on. If you are nothing without a suit, then you shouldn't have it. That's really a core message of MCU, and I love it. So again, no end credit scene. At the end, you hear some clanking metal sound with the Marvel logo, which I think is the sound of Iron Man making his first armor in the cave back with the first Iron Man movie. So that's Avengers Endgame. It's a lot to take in. It's really a lot. The most brilliant one sentence review of this movie I've seen says that this is the most movie I've ever seen. You'd think it's a typo, you think he left the adjective, but no, this is an accurate depiction of how we feel about this movie. This is the most movie I've seen. And as I said, it's not like I don't have any problems. As I've explained, I'm not a huge fan of how Hulk is portrayed in this movie, especially when Hulk is kind of sidelined in the final battle. I kind of understand, because half of Hulk is kind of unusable for battle. He was injured with him taking on the gauntlet. So I understand what's going on. I understand why he wasn't used more. I still want to see him more. That's the thing. I want Hulk to have his moment against Thanos. He got his ass beaten in the last time, and he didn't really get his revenge. He didn't really come back as epically as I thought he would. I'm nitpicking. Also, I think maybe the second act drags on a little bit too much with all the different branches of time heist, of all the new Gamora, of jumping from here to there. I mean, they're individually speaking, they're all great moments, they're all great segments, but I think on when put together, sometimes you feel like this scene over here does not run very smoothly with the scene immediately before or after it. But with all that payoff, I don't know what I would change. I felt the same problem happened with Infinity War 2. There was a middle section there that's there you kind of get half an hour without any real action, but the way these two movies have such great payoffs, I mean, what would you change? What would you cut out? You think 3 hours is long? I mean, I didn't feel like it was that long. Don't get me wrong, I don't feel like it's too short. It didn't feel, I wouldn't say like that 3 hours went off like a snap, but it felt like an ordinary 2 hour movie experience with me. I didn't feel longer than normal movies, and it's safe to say it's longer than normal movies. So that's a major plus right there. I can't wait to see it a third time. I'm seeing it a third time in one single week. You can't say that about every movie out there. It's so rare. It's so rare that a movie is so hyped to this extent and actually earns the hype. I don't know how I would want this movie differently. Maybe except a more powerful Hulk. But there's just too much to take in with this movie. There is so much emotion on the line, and the performance was very on point. I think Gwyneth Paltrow is a highlight. I didn't expect the character of Pepper Potts to be a highlight for me in an ensemble movie that ends all on ensemble movies, but there you go. This is kind of the thing of MCU is it doesn't always go the way you think it would. It goes the way you didn't know you wanted to go. I can talk about this for another 4 hours, but I think I'm gonna have to cut it right here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching me play, and thank you for the last part. Thank you for watching the gameplay itself. I don't know if I'm gonna make more of these. I feel like I can't really get my mind together when I play and talk at the same time. But who are we kidding? I'm not the most eloquent person out there, even at the best of times. So maybe this is kind of a good way to just to chill and to talk about things we love. Maybe I don't know what's the next movie I'm gonna see. Maybe I'll do a similar thing then. Probably Detective Pikachu. There are a few movies out there that I want to watch, like Euro now, but you know, at the end of the day, I just want to see Endgame again. This happens like once every year with super hyped up movies. When it comes out, there are a few weeks before the week before it and then the week after it. I cannot think about anything else other than the said movie. It was the same thing with The Force Awakens. Like, I was straight up scared to go into the theater. I looked forward to it so much. I was shaking when I entered the theater, and I was nervous for it to begin. It's like my whole life hangs on it. Well, Endgame is the end of the Infinity Saga, which encompasses the first 22 movies. A staggering achievement. It's not a perfect movie, but it's a perfect conclusion. In many ways, it's a better conclusion than it is a movie, but that's okay because it's more important as a conclusion than as an individual movie. And really, thank you for listening to me babble about this all this time. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video, whatever it is. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to hear more of this, and let me know how you think about this format. Let me know if you just want, maybe you would prefer me to do a more traditional format of movie review, or anything, just anything. Just glad to have you here. Well, see you next time. Have a good one.